Sustainability is a global issue, but in view of urbanization, the local level is becoming increasingly important, both in terms of implementing sustainable strategies and communicating them. Cities all over the world have drafted challenges, goals, and action plans in the Agenda 21 since the mid-1990s. Political actors can suggest many ideas and create solutions, but if they do not communicate and involve the citizens, their plans will not be implemented. Media and journalism play one major role in communication in local areas. So the example of Nuremberg, Bavaria, and Germany, the complex relationships between the different actors in the field of local sustainability communication will be described. So have a look of today's agenda. First, urbanization and sustainability. The second chapter will be the challenges of sustainability on a local level. Third, the need for sustainability communication. In the fourth chapter, I will describe very briefly the example of Nuremberg in Germany. And fifth, conclusion and perspectives. In 2020, more than 56% of the world's population will live in cities. 23 of the world's 27 megacities are located in developing countries. 12 of them are in Asia. By 2050, the majority of the 43 megacities will arise in Asia and Africa. These rates will rise to 60 and 78% respectively by 2030. The dynamics of urbanization are alarming. Megacities attract people with pull factors that are economic and social. Better jobs promise higher income and higher social status, increased wealth, and a higher living standard. Additionally, cultural offerings and a wide range of shopping opportunities are appealing. In comparison to rural areas, there is neither social control by neighbors or social constraints bound by traditions. Also, the number of people living in slums has been considerably reduced in recent years. The inhabitants of megacities or developing countries, in particular, still have no access to public transport, clean water, and their waste is not regularly disposed of. Also, cities only cover 2% of the Earth's surface. They consume nearly 80% of the global energy. At the same time, cities are exposed to the consequences of climate change, with almost 2/3 located in coastal regions. The major challenges, therefore, lie in making cities worldwide more sustainable. For many decades, the German Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research has been studying indicators for urban sustainability, largely in cooperation with international partners, and formulating proposals for solutions based on its analysis. There is a close correlation between the size or growth of a city, social interaction, economic growth, and the question of resource consumption on the one hand, and the emission of climate-damaging emissions on the other. The global sustainability efforts are based on the Sustainable Development Goals. The United Nations has formulated goal number 11, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. After the Rio Conference in 1992, 172 governments agreed on the action program Agenda 21, which involved local cities as important actors in global sustainability development, according to the motto, Think Global, Act Local. Not only, but mainly, the biggest cities have built up national and transnational networks like Local Government for Sustainability, United Cities and Local Governments, NC40. The most important and common goal is the reduction of greenhouse gases. To this end, they are in permanent dialogue with each other to share know-how and experiences. Because they can decide autonomously about strategies and the implementation of technical solutions in the field of waste policy, energy supply, etc., each city is considered a kind of experimental laboratory. The cities see themselves as development drivers for the entire world population, and they are playing an increasingly important role. The famous guiding principle can be reversed into think local, act global. Although political and economic actors have established structures that also function well beyond city or national borders, there is no scientific evidence as to whether that has led to improvements in environmental conditions or changes in citizens' behavior. There are great differences between the cities on the 7 continents, but nevertheless more similarities. Certainly one thing they have in common is the fact that the simple measures towards a more sustainable society have been taken and are comparatively successful. The most challenging goal is to find the balance between prosperity and environmental protection. How are people to be convinced to abstain from using cars and go for bicycles instead? How can it be effectively explained that they should buy and eat only regional food instead of mangoes and papayas transported by airplane? Communication at all levels, political, economic, scientific, civil society, plays a central role. The great challenge of the topic of sustainability lies in its complexity. It is undisputed that the human way of life has a considerable influence on living conditions. Not least of all, climate change is a result of this lifestyle, which is primarily shaped by the industrialized countries, and at the same time it is a trigger for extreme weather events and the associated disasters. The interplay of geological, meteorological, geographical, and also sociological and psychological variables correlates, and causality is sometimes not clearly proven. Even if scientists around the world agree by consensus that continuing to do so will end in a disaster, that does not mean that knowledge and expertise is programmed to lead the changes in attitude and behavior. For the changes must be fundamental. The perception and handling of ecological problems depends very much on cultural contexts. The concepts of sustainability differ culturally or are reflected differently. The role of the individual in society and the participation of civil societies in the political discourse, for example, are essential. Sustainability communication is thus a process of mutual understanding dealing with the future development of society, at the core of which is a vision of sustainability. In summary, it can be said that human behavior, social values, and attitudes towards the world and environment are mediated by communication. Effective communication is essential for sustainability and sustainable strategies. Regardless of whether it is internal communication within organizations or external communication with various stakeholders, whether written or oral, sustainability communication must always be simple, direct, and precise. Ruit Genç, a colleague from Turkey, distinguishes 3 types of sustainability communication. First, communication about sustainability. In these communication processes, information, interpretations, and opinions about sustainability aspects are exchanged and discussed. The focus is on a common understanding of sustainability, the goals to be achieved, and the actions to be taken. Second, communication of sustainability. This primarily means monodirectional information from a communicator to a recipient. For example, scientists, experts, journalists, and other actors want to reach decision makers in particular, or the audience in general, in order to generate attention for themselves and their goals and to legitimize themselves through this. However, this one-way communication is increasingly being criticized and considered less than opportune in times of a global movement like Fridays for Future. And third, communication for sustainability. This type of communication focuses very strongly in the normative aspects of sustainable development. The objective of communication for sustainability is to establish societal transformation on the basis of the normative goals of sustainable development. There is no doubt that media, and for the past 10 years social media in particular, have played a major role in social communication. But also the direct communication between social groups and individuals should not be underestimated, especially in the context of sustainability, especially in regional and local areas. There are only a few practical examples that have been scientifically monitored. One of them is the Local Area Coordination Network project, which has been in existence in England and Wales since 2012. With a focus on a social sustainability, above all the health and care sector, local projects are initiated, which are scientifically monitored and evaluated. Scientists from the University of Leeds have developed a theory of change from this. The focus is on people who do not wait for crises, but tackle them and change the existing system collectively in a dialogue with one another, using local resources and opportunities. Local area coordination programs offer a very creative approach to supporting people to take control of and develop opportunities in their life, often reconnecting people into new relationships and resources. Two elements are central to this program: finding local coordinators and managers and developing frames and narratives that convince other people of the change process and take them along. A further example is the implementation of the dashboard of sustainability, with which the specific conditions can be excellently described, especially at the local level or the urban context. This tool, developed in the late 1990s, is used to measure different dimensions of sustainability. For this monitoring, economic, ecological, and social indicators were developed which make the phenomena visible, especially for a limited local area, and can thus help to implement and communicate concrete decisions and strategies for sustainable development. Using the example of the Italian city of Padua, Scipioni et al. Show how the specific adaptation of this tool to the conditions of Padua has yielded excellent data, which in turn have been a good basis for the further development of the local Agenda 21. We are now on the third chapter, the need for sustainability communication. What people think about and how they act depend on communication through personal and media channels. One main source are traditional local media, especially printed newspapers. But is sustainability on the local journalism agenda? Local journalism is an under-recognized sphere, both in practice and scientific research. Only a few researchers are working on this subject. Local is a concept that connects geography and place with a sense of belonging. To be considered a local implies that our feet are planted firmly on the ground somewhere, and that our physical surroundings are deeply and comfortably familiar. We invest in a locality socially, economically, culturally, and psychologically. Local news values differ from those of national journalism. The focus is more on proximity and scope, timeliness and conflict resolution, narrative appeal, actions of elites and prominent individuals, human interests, the unusual and unexpected, and at least advocacy. But the media landscape is transforming in the 21st century. The old media, such as television, radio, and print, are and will remain a central component of media systems worldwide. The internet, and especially social media platforms, are a key source for the latest news and information. All these analog and digital channels are used to distribute information, news, but also entertainment for billions of people. However, the liberalization of the media markets and technology improvements have significantly changed the national media landscapes. One of the biggest problems is the collapse of the economic basis in most countries around the world. Sustainability could be one of the most covered topics, but many studies and comments from the world of practitioners show the opposite. Sustainability cannot be reduced to only one phenomenon, but includes a wide range of subjects like environmental protection and management, farming and food products, in addition to arts and education. This semantic diversity is the reason why the term is still not tangible in journalism. It is criticized because of its inflationary use and its ambiguity, and its complexity, which makes it too demanding and less attractive for daily coverage and event and news value-oriented reporting. Media coverage is structured by the principle of resort, and sustainability issues can be placed into the public affairs, the economics, and the local section, or the science pages of a newspaper. My colleague Thorsten Schäfer from the university in Darmstadt, he built up this platform, Grüner Journalismus, or in English, green journalism. In English, this introduction is: we provide research aids, blogs, and specialist interviews on the environment and sustainability for journalists, lecturers, researchers, and students. The focus of our work is the promotion of training and further education in sustainability and environmental journalism at the Darmstadt University of Applied Sciences, as well as nationwide with cooperation partners. So Thorsten Schäfer is an environmental journalist, but also professor at the Hochschule Darmstadt and editor of this platform, Green Journalism. And he explains why sustainability is nevertheless a compelling issue. Sustainability is not an empty phrase without meaning, but a 300-year-old mature idea of civilization, which has become the conceptual core, even a universal value in society, science, politics, and economics. The term has enormous relevance. No journalist should run away from it. On the contrary, one should face the complexity, circumnavigate the word content from different sides, experience it, and inform it oneself. Nonetheless, the conclusion of the journalistic study remains that sustainability is a complex cross-sectional topic that is little covered in all media sections. It is perceived selectively on the basis of negative news factors such as scandal and disaster. So now we are coming to my example, Nuremberg. It's a good best practice example to describe and analyze the role of sustainability in a local area. Since the turn of the millennium, the population has been increasing. In 2000, there were about 482,000 people living in the city. In 2017, there were about 526,400. Currently, there are almost 530,000 without refugees. In the whole metropolitan area, the population is nearly 3.5 million people. Agenda 21, Nuremberg was launched in 1997. This included establishing the profiles Biometropole, Fair Trade Town for the city, amongst other initiatives. Between 2005 and 2015, 3 sustainable reports were published. The first 3 reports are structured around the 3 themes: ecological and solidary urban society, sustainable economy, and citizen participation. The fourth and most current report was published in November 2018 for the years 2015 to 2017 and is structured on the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. On 146 pages, all the different keywords like poverty, inequality, education, health, etc. are explained and documented with facts and figures. They come from a monitoring system that was installed in 2012 and includes 300 different indicators, more than half of which are ecological. With their help, the authorities can document what objectives have been achieved and to what extent. Dr. Susanne Sprösser, Scientific Associate at the City's Environmental Department, is responsible for the coordination and publication of the Sustainability Report, summarized the situation in Nuremberg. The low-hanging fruits are harvested, now it goes to the high-hanging, and they are very high. Not only are material costs rising, for example, in the areas of waste, water, energy, and mobility, but the ideal limits have also almost been reached. Every further goal requires a special commitment on the part of the citizens, especially as far as their willingness to cooperate and communicate is concerned. For internal and external communication, the relevant activities, channels, instruments, and concrete measures had to be installed, starting in 2005 with a City Council resolution, an interdepartment working group under the leadership of the Environmental Department has been developing, for example, the environmental monitoring and the sustainability reports. The Forum Urban Development, which with representatives from 5 different departments, finance, economy, environment, culture, and planning and construction, and the Mayor's office meets 6 times a year to discuss future challenges. Susanne Sprösser explains, in the beginning there was resistance due to the different interests and priorities. In the meantime, something like cross-department thinking has developed. It's no longer just our own department that counts. An example of a typical source of conflict is the friction between the priorities of residential construction and ecological urban development. As there is currently a shortage of apartments, housing construction is strongly promoted. This has positive implications from the viewpoint of the planning and construction and economic departments, but the environmental department criticizes the land usage and calls for reductions in long-term energy consumption and resource conservation. Finding a good compromise between the densification of residential construction and the preservation of green oases is often a complex process. There are some current examples in Nuremberg which illustrate this negotiation. For example, the construction of the new concert hall would require trees to be felled in a park. In the majority of cases, economic, environmental, social, and cultural values should be weighed up. For sustainability expert Susanne Sprösser, such procedures always pose a fundamental question. In which world do we want to live? Which values are important to us? A sufficiency debate must be conducted. How much consumption, and thus raw material and energy consumption, is really necessary? Or vice versa, how much can people do without in favor of a sustainable way of life? The environmental department works to encourage and moderate this fundamental debate about, of, and for sustainability. The traditional ways via press release for the local media, like newspapers, radio and TV stations, but also new, like the social media, and participatory formats like roundtables, workshop talks, city cycling with a major, climate protection tours, etc. are used. In the open office of the City Planning Department, which opened in 2010, citizens can obtain information and comment on the projects. So now we come to the last chapter, conclusions and perspectives. At the local political level, the following challenges for sustainability development and communication can be summarized. Sustainability requires networks across diverse municipal disciplines and functions. The environmental department is a key initiator and moderator in this complex field, but the executive authority is influenced by different intervening variables. There are a number of legal requirements at European, national and federal state levels that have a significant impact on, for example, waste management. However, the room for maneuver at the local level is very limited. Just one example, Nuremberg established returnable cups at the Christmas market in the 1980s. But the city cannot do anything about the thousands of coffee-to-go cups that are distributed every day. Despite the many measures taken, the waste rate in Nuremberg remains consistently high. The recycling quota does not increase. Therefore, energetic utilization is still important. The municipality is striving to use the heat out of the incineration plants for long-distance heating. The interests within the executive authority and among the executive and the legislative bodies must be balanced out again and again. In concrete terms, this means that political majorities for sustainable measures must be found at the level of municipal departments and between their heads and the city parliament. That this is not always easy has already been explained above. Every election after every couple of years presents new constellations. Successfully promoting sustainable strategies is heavily dependent on the personal commitment and priorities of individual leaders. Both the head major and the head of the environmental department are highly motivated for sustainable policy. They gather external expertise to convince the representatives with objective arguments. But they will both leave their position in the near future. Nobody knows if their successors will also be committed to sustainability. That happens a few weeks ago. It is important that communication along external channels is organized to both receive and send messages. Mainly, the contact to and the dialogue with citizens, associations, and also regional NGOs must be built up and developed continually. In Nuremberg, several initiatives, associations, and alliances are very active in the field of sustainability. For example, the Nürnberger Energiewendebündnis and Blue Pingu. They support and organize campaigns and projects such as Fridays for Future, Zero Waste. Other regional and national institutions that such as the Industrie- und Handelskammer, it's an economic player, etc. In order to understand sustainable development, citizens must understand the political and economic structures on the one hand and have access to knowledge and insights on the other. Local media, and here above all the daily newspapers, can provide both structural and factual knowledge. But can they do this in the area of sustainability? The topic sustainability does not easily fit the standards and rules of journalism. It is often reduced to bad news, disaster, catastrophe, etc. The local editing offices try to meet the challenges between good news and PR. Sustainability is wide and complex. It is a very important issue for all actors, but people mistrust the abilities of politicians at the local community level and beyond. Not all target groups are willing and able to change their lifestyle, so all information about sustainability has to be easy to understand and must build a bridge to their day-to-day world. Yes, and let's have a short look at my research project, which will start in a few weeks, about sustainability communication and the Nuremberg metropolitan region. We will start in August and September with preparation, and the project itself will start in October 2020. We have 1 year to reach a central aim. It's the analysis of sustainability communication, taking into account political, economic, and civil society and media actors. And based on these results, a concept of integrated sustainability communication is to be developed to support the sustainability goals and strategies of Agenda 2030. Ideally, the various actors, each of whom communicates differently on different channels, should be networked even more closely, and citizens should be offered a platform on which they can inform themselves about sustainability and exchange information. Thank you very much for your attention.